Hi, I want to make a video on the ethereal nature, and this is coming from a different point of view, but I've mentioned this in other videos, slightly at the very least, when it comes to the idea of how our psychology and the projection, and how it's just projections, and how we touch things and we do things even if they minted with us. It doesn't have much of a meaning beyond the fact that it's just my hand, my neurology, my peripheral nervous system, say my hand interacting with something, or on say music or something, looking at a piece of art, my brain interacting with something else. Obviously we're part of the same reality, but it's my these atoms are interacting with these atoms, or reacting to these atoms based on the thing that they create as a whole, such as the brain neurology interacting, all the atoms moving, creating the synapses in the brain, the electricity causing all this kind of, the sentient being to exist, all this mechanical work happening, causing an interaction between things. But that's all it is, basically, is an interaction, a psychological interaction. To touch something, it's a psychological interaction based on your senses, based on your brain sensing things and sending a force feedback mechanism where you feel something in reaction to the outside, the interaction that you have with something on the outside of your neurology, outside of your brain having some connection to a certain point, such as connecting a new arm to you, like a third and fourth arm onto your body, and then touching things. That would be an extension of your neurology. Robotic arms, where it's you're extending it based on your senses, your sense, almost like your sixth sense to sense, based off of thinking and recognizing, projecting, that kind of sense, projecting into, what you have expectations of, your expectations, what you find useful or meaningful, or what you like or what you dislike, this brain neurology of how it thinks and projects and does those kinds of things. And that's really all we're doing, is projecting. It doesn't matter how much you integrate something with you. You stick something right in your brain so your brain can feel it. Well, first of all, your brain is one of the only organs, and your liver is the only two organs, as far as I know, that don't have any feeling. You don't feel them physically. Those are two, I guess, feeling. Those two organs in your body had no evolutionary purpose to have any feeling, because especially the brain, that I can say, is because it's well protected and doesn't have any feeling, because the feeling is the psychology based on all these mechanisms that all these other organs that the brain's connected to, and that's how the brain feels, is based on this more psychology thing more directly, and all these other organs based on feeling, and the neurology and the peripheral and central nervous system that you're feeling this through. So it's more of a psychological thing that your brain's feeling, making you. It's a survival mechanism to let you see your surroundings based on all these senses. Everything's going everywhere else, and not the feeling, because that wasn't as important as the senses that we're sensing. If I have to put my own take on it. So yes, that's all we're doing, is interacting. Everything's it slips right through our fingers, and we're not doing anything beyond experiencing a brain interaction. Without this central nervous system, this sentience, this brain thing, we're not doing anything but interacting. It's just your cold dead hand that you no longer have control of, you're no longer aware of, you no longer have cutting off your arm and having it touch something. It was your arm, but it's not connected to your brain anymore. So once it's no longer connected to your brain, other than your psychology associating that, like, my arm hit. Okay, I cut my arm off and I threw my arm against the doorknob. Okay, I touched the door. No, wait, no, I didn't touch the doorknob. You're sort of associating. You're living vicariously through your dismembered arm now, and that's all we're doing. It's our psychology having these senses, creating these senses, and and our senses, like feeling and smelling and hearing and seeing and things like that, and smelling. And that's all we're doing, and it's based off of this extension of the nervous system, the peripheral. We're all a nervous system. This is our whole nervous system. And the closer you get to this brain thing that's causing the central activity of causing all this, like the heart feeds the brain feeds the heart pumps the blood to the brain, and the brain feeds the heart with the brain helps the heart function based on the nerves that are sent to the heart to cause it to pump. So that's how we're doing. It's just an interaction. It's a symbiotic relationship that we have these things with. There's no real ownership. We don't have real ownership. That's why everything's sort of ethereal. Nothing's really something we can touch beyond a certain point, because all we're doing is interacting. I'm touching atom to atom, and that's all I'm doing. There's nothing more. Obviously, it's like, why expect anything more? Why are you thinking so deeply about it? And that's about coming to these conclusions and recognizing the reality we're living in. And it comes to looking past your projections and what you find just livable, and looking at those things and almost finding it unlivable when you come to those recognitions, and recognizing exactly what the reality game that you're looking in. And That's the downside of getting more knowledge, but that's the entire purpose of going forward and existing, is to get more knowledge, and there's nothing more to it than that. You're constantly driving forward, and the conclusion isn't pretty, so what, you're going to regress backwards so you can go forward again? And you're going to do that? You want to blow yourself into the Stone Age so you can go back to the, you can rediscover everything? It doesn't seem like a reasonable conclusion to come, or a reasonable expectation, or a reasonable solution to any kind of problem when it comes to when it comes to that kind of issue, when understanding the progression leads to a dead end. Everything's ethereal. Looking at something, your interaction with hearing, say, a piece of music, or looking at a piece of art, or eating food. It's just your senses, your brain sensing through these organs. It means something. It's obviously means something, like feeling means something, even though it's just your nerve endings feeling something, or your psychology feeling something, which I would say is based off of these physical interactions that you have, leading to a psychological reaction. It's a sort of force feedback mechanism, so it's sort of like anxiety feeding, your heart pumping and all the adrenaline rushing through your body, leading to some kind of reaction physically, leading to a psychological reaction. The psychological reaction is just an awareness of all these physical things causing degradation in your psychological well-being based on your physical well-being, based on something caused by your brain, causing a lot of adrenaline or these hormones or whatever it may be, these chemicals running through your body, leading to a reaction-based physical reaction, causing a psychological reaction based on this reaction, sort of like a force feedback loop. And I think anxiety and things like panic attacks are a good example of that. So yes, that's really all we're doing. Is, even if we were mending with things, even if we were, sticking our hand in the wall and ghost sticking our hand in the wall and became one with the wall, it wouldn't be anything more than an interaction. We're not. It's, and it comes down to the very nature of this existence game not having much meaning beyond a certain point. You're just interacting with things, going through your day, the ethereal nature where you're sandwiched between the beginning and the end, and the end doesn't matter. I mean, the middle doesn't matter to the end or the beginning. It's just reaching the end, and it doesn't really matter. Sort of like the satisfaction is the only thing that matters in the end, and that it doesn't matter how you reach the satisfaction. All the satisfaction is pretty much the same. And it's usually contentment, and I like all these things, like getting excited about something, or you're creating a deprivation by your expectation, leading to some, a greater risk for having a greater low. So the greater you have some expectation, the more disappointment, all sorts of factors can come into consideration when coming to the disappointment and things like that when it comes to something you look more forward to. So contentment, like a peaceful sleep, is close as when you're living that you can find some. When you're still you're still processing things that has any meaning, that has any reasonable distance from the zero-sum game that we're playing. So once you reach the wall, what are you going to do? Okay, you're going to look at the wall and you think, okay, I'm at the wall. I need to look for something else now. I need to do something. I can't just stare at this wall because I'm going to start stirring up. I need something else to do. Or otherwise, I can sit here and think about a problem. It's about mitigating the problems and having as little of a problem to get to as great of a solution or a satisfaction as possible, as much, and having try to keep it as little separation as possible. But hopefully, it's more towards the positive side, so that you're reaching a more positive end without us going as far on the negative. And that's always a good solution, or a nice way to. At least a nice way to look at it. It's not always practical. It's not the case the way it always works out, because life is in control of you. You're not in control of life, and it's going to make you go as far down or as high up as it's willing to let you, based on the circumstances, that you're being adhered to. So there's nothing more to it. But there's probably more to explain. I just can't think of it right now. Okay. So. Yep, we're stuck in this game, and there's nothing more we can do except being adhered to, and based on the crude forces. And there's nothing more than psychological interaction with these things. All we're doing is psychologically interacting with things based on our central nervous system, which gives us the projection of reality. Everything is just made up of atoms, but based on our physiology, creating based on our scale and our size, gives us the solution where I can see on this level. I'm in a room right now, and I can see this, while an ant would see something different, be much bigger. They could see things probably much smaller. A lot of them see things much smaller on a different level. And if you are a microbe, you can see things. If you are aware in a microbe and you are aware, and you'd see things on a different level, on a more rudimentary level that that leads to a bigger and bigger and smaller to a point. But there's these boundaries, obviously, that we have, and that's makes it irrelevant how infinite regression, when there's boundaries right here that create a boundary. There's nothing beyond this boundary when it comes to my hand. Unless the skin peeling off and you're rubbing off skin cells and stuff like that, and atoms and such. But there's nothing where there's boundaries, and that almost takes away the real meaningfulness when it comes to the idea of some kind of infinite regression. Things getting smaller, taking a half step and another half of the half step and a half of the half step, taking a smaller and smaller step. So it doesn't matter as much. Well, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's just the idea of understanding there's boundaries, and once there's a boundary, that it's irrelevant beyond that point. I think that's it. I don't think I necessarily explained everything I wanted to, but it's yes, there's nothing more than these interacting with things, psychologically speaking. You're interacting with a piece of music just as much as you're interacting with a doorknob when you're opening a door. You're just touching something, you're sensing something with your senses, you're hearing something, you're feeling something. It's all pretty much the same. It just can be a painful, screeching noise when you hear something go deaf. All these senses can be harmed because they're part of a mechanism that's aware and using these senses to navigate an environment to survive and live based on this this idea of being harmed, being put into harm's way based on evolution, trying to help us, get us through these things in life and so on and so forth, so that we can reach an end. So that all of this really means nothing, but it means something because it matters. But once we're dead, it doesn't mean anything to us anymore. But it still mattered when it happened. It still matters even once it's already happened. So it matters no matter what. I think that's all I need to say. I think so far. So thank you. Until next time. Bye.